Welcome to today's Explainer. Get ready because today we are breaking down the E20 fuel mandate and exactly how it's going to impact pre-2023 vehicles. Look, this isn't just some minor policy update. This is a massive, fundamental infrastructural shift that's going to affect the daily commutes of literally millions of people across India. So we're going to cut right through all the noise and figure out exactly what is happening under the hood.
Okay, let's dive into this. Is the new fuel actually destroying your engine? I mean, if you've scrolled through social media lately, wow, you have probably seen an absolute storm of complaints going viral. We are talking about deeply frustrated drivers posting photos of seized engines, dashboards showing sudden dramatic mileage crashes, and local mechanics holding up these horribly corroded vehicle parts. It looks alarming, right? And it's leaving so many everyday commuters wondering if their trusted daily ride is quietly being eaten away from the inside out by the very fuel they're now forced to buy at the pump.
To really wrap our heads around why this is such a massive national conversation, we just need to look at one staggering number: 24 crore. That is the estimated number of two-wheelers alone on Indian roads that are potentially at risk in this transition. And frankly, that doesn't even count the millions of older cars out there. The reality here is that a vast portion of the country is suddenly finding themselves in a tough spot. They're being pushed to use a fuel blend that their vehicle's engine was simply never originally designed or certified to process. But before we get totally swept up in the controversy, let's take a breath and calmly look at the science and the definitions. What exactly is E20 fuel? Simply put, it's a biofuel blend. It's made up of 20% ethanol, which is mostly extracted from agricultural sources, things like sugarcane and crop waste, mixed with 80% traditional petrol. Now, taking a step back, from a macroeconomic perspective, this is a brilliant idea. The intended benefits are massive. It's designed to reduce urban tailpipe pollution, empower local farmers by turning their crop waste into actual fuel revenue, and critically, cut down the nation's heavy reliance on expensive imported crude oil. Let's move to and see how this builds. If we look at the timeline, this transition has been incredibly rapid. I mean, think about it. Back in 2014, India only had a tiny 1.5% ethanol blending rate. Fast forward to 2023, and E10, which is a 10% blend, was rolled out nationwide. Then, the government aggressively accelerated its timeline, hitting the 20% blending target by December 2025. That was actually a full 5 years ahead of their original 2030 goal, which brings us to the hard deadline, April 1, 2026. That's the date when the E20 exclusive mandate officially kicks in, meaning regular pure petrol will practically disappear from the pumps entirely. So right here is where we hit a massive technical mismatch. Imagine you bought a vehicle built anywhere between roughly 2011 and early 2023. The manufacturer only certified that engine to handle a maximum of 10% ethanol, or E10. It wasn't until April 2023, with the rollout of the BS6 Phase 2 norms, that vehicles officially hitting the market were fully engineered and certified as E20 compliant. That leaves a massive gap, right? Over a decade's worth of vehicles are suddenly facing a 20% ethanol diet they were never built for. Let's dig into the chemistry for a second to see why this causes so much friction. The absolute core of the issue comes down to one scientific word: hygroscopic. Simply translated, it means ethanol loves water. It actively pulls moisture right out of the air. So imagine your vehicle's metal fuel tank just sitting there. The ethanol in the E20 fuel draws in atmospheric moisture over time, and that moisture settles at the bottom. And, well, what happens when water sits against bare metal? You get rust. You literally get corrosion forming from the inside out. When that moisture, along with the natural solvent properties of ethanol, gets to work, the microeconomic losses for everyday commuters really start piling up. Local mechanics are reporting a massive surge in specific repairs for those pre-2023 vehicles. We're talking about rubber seals and fuel hoses that swell up, harden, and just crack under the stress of the ethanol. We're seeing corroded metal tanks and totally clogged jets in older carbureted bikes. And because ethanol actually has a lower energy density than regular petrol, it creates a leaner air fuel mixture. This leads to cold start issues, rough idling, and, most painfully for your wallet, a reported mileage drop ranging anywhere from 5 to a whopping 20%. And this isn't just a handful of isolated complaints on the internet. Public sentiment is overwhelmingly concerned. This was clearly reflected in an independent survey by local circles that polled 36,000 vehicle owners. A staggering 44% demanded a rollback of the national rollout, while 22% explicitly said, hey, we just want the choice to buy older fuel. We even saw consumer protests in Delhi in 2026, where frustrated owners were holding up damaged engine parts on stage. Adding to all this anxiety is the massive fear of insurance rejection. A lot of owners are terrified that if their engine fails because they use an uncertified fuel blend, their insurance claims are simply going to be denied. But, okay, to be completely fair and impartial here, we absolutely have to pivot and look at the monumental macroeconomic wins the government is pointing to, because the numbers, they are undeniable. The ethanol program has saved a staggering 1.9 lakh crore in foreign exchange by reducing our dependence on imported crude oil. On top of that, over 1.6 lakh crore has been paid directly into the pockets of local farmers. So environmentally and economically, on a massive national scale, the policy is achieving exactly what it set out to do. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute divide right now. It's literally two completely different realities. On one side, you have the deeply frustrated consumer claims, engine rust, massive mileage drops, and real insurance fears. But on the exact opposite side, you have the petroleum ministry and top automakers like Maruti Suzuki and Toyota pushing back hard with their own data. The Automotive Research Association of India, or ARAI, ran 40,000-kilometer tests and reported zero major drivability damage and only a marginal 1 to 6% mileage drop. Furthermore, Maruti Suzuki noted they have safely serviced over 1.5 crore non-E20 certified older cars with absolutely no fuel-related problems found. But wait, there is a catch to all of this. Amidst these deeply conflicting claims between everyday drivers and institutional data, there's a growing demand from critics for absolute transparency. Critics point out that there are detailed, institutional reports regarding the potential long-term damage to rubber parts that have allegedly just not been released to the public. Consumers are essentially saying, look, if it's perfectly safe, show us the unredacted test data on these older rubber components so we can judge the risk for ourselves. Now, what's really interesting about this is how India's rapid approach compares to global leaders in ethanol blending, like Brazil and the USA. Those countries managed their transitions over decades. They provided tax subsidies and multiple fuel choices at the pump so consumers could pick exactly what fit their specific vehicle. India, however, has taken the approach of a very rapid transition with a single hard mandate. And what's super notable here is that India's own Niti Aayog recommended back in 2021 that high ethanol blends should actually be made cheaper through tax benefits to incentivize consumers. But currently, standard pricing remains, leaving consumers holding the risks of the new fuel, but without any discount at the pump to offset it. So where does that leave you, the everyday commuter who simply needs to get to work without destroying their engine? Let's transition away from the high-level policy debate and focus on high-utility takeaways. If you're a middle-class owner of a pre-2023 vehicle, you need practical, immediate solutions right now. So we're going to look at exactly how you can mitigate these risks and protect your investment today. So the crucial point is you need a plan. Here is your actionable checklist to protect your vehicle right now. First, rigorously check your manual or the manufacturer's website for your specific E20 compatibility. Second, have your mechanic thoroughly inspect all rubber seals and fuel hoses for any early signs of cracking or swelling. Third, replace your fuel filter earlier than the standard schedule just to prevent clogging. Fourth, do the math to see if buying the more expensive, premium, ethanol-free fuel makes economic sense for you to avoid future repair bills. Fifth, call your insurance provider today and verify, in writing, exactly how fuel-related damage is covered. And finally, if you experience genuine damage, document it and report it to consumer forums to add to the organized data pool. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. We want to leave you with a really complex balance to consider. On one hand, we have this vital, massive national shift towards a cleaner, more economically independent fuel ecosystem. It's huge for the country. On the other hand, we have harsh realities and potential repair bills facing millions of existing vehicle owners who feel they were given absolutely no choice in the matter. So how will the E20 transition impact your daily commute? It is a question every single driver will have to answer as 2026 approaches. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this crucial topic. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and we will see you on the next explainer.